Respect begins where validation ends. The need to be seen, approved of, or liked is one of the deepest human longings, but it is also one of the greatest traps. As long as your sense of worth depends on how others respond to you, you are not living freely, you are performing. You begin to twist yourself to fit into expectations, to adjust your tone so no one feels uncomfortable, to suppress parts of your truth so you can stay accepted. But every time you do this, a small fracture opens within. You trade authenticity for approval, and the soul knows the difference. Validation is a subtle addiction. It starts innocently wanting to be appreciated, understood, or acknowledged, but it quickly becomes a silent dependence. You begin to measure yourself through the mirror of other people's eyes, and when that mirror reflects disapproval or indifference, you mistake it for your own inadequacy. The truth is, external validation can never fill the void it promises to heal, because the one seeking it is always giving power away. Respect, on the other hand, is not a currency traded with others. It is a quiet recognition of your own inherent value. When you stop chasing validation, you stop negotiating your worth. You no longer bend your truth to fit the comfort of others or explain your choices just to avoid their misunderstanding. You begin to act from alignment rather than approval. This shift is not arrogance, it is integrity. You are no longer trying to prove that you are enough. You are simply being what you already are. Respect is the natural fragrance of authenticity, and it only appears when the performance ends. The need for validation is rooted in fear, the fear of rejection, abandonment, and invisibility. Somewhere in childhood or experience, you learned that love was conditional, that if you said the wrong thing, showed too much emotion, or stood too tall, someone would withdraw affection. So you learned to edit yourself. You learned to please instead of express. You learned that survival meant fitting in. But the adult self must unlearn what the wounded self created. Respecting yourself means facing the discomfort of not being liked, of being misunderstood, of being seen as too much or not enough. It means standing in the storm of disapproval without losing your grounding. When you no longer seek validation, something profound happens. You begin to see others clearly. The ones who once held power over your emotions lose it, not because you've become indifferent, but because your worth is no longer up for negotiation. You can listen to criticism without collapsing, receive praise without inflating, and face rejection without shrinking. You understand that the opinions of others are reflections of their own inner world, not verdicts on your value. This clarity births a deep kind of peace, one that is not dependent on being understood or accepted. Respect begins as an internal stance. It is the quiet decision to no longer abandon yourself for belonging. It is choosing honesty over popularity, truth over comfort, presence over performance. You start speaking your mind even when your voice shakes. You start walking away from spaces where your worth must be earned. You start loving yourself enough to stop proving it. The more you live from this place, the less you need others to reassure you of who you are. You begin to realize that validation was never the goal. It was a substitute for the self-respect you had not yet cultivated. In the absence of validation, something powerful awakens the still, grounded knowing that your existence needs no justification. You no longer need the world to echo your worth back to you, because you have become the echo yourself. You realize that respect is not a reward, but a reflection, not something you seek, but something you embody. The moment you stop seeking permission to be, you start to truly exist. Boundaries are the language of self-worth. They are not walls built to keep others out, but doors that determine who has earned the right to enter. They are the invisible lines where self-respect begins to speak on your behalf. When you have not yet learned to honor your limits, the world teaches you through exhaustion, resentment, and disappointment. You give and give and give until you realize that kindness without boundaries becomes self-betrayal. The more you overextend yourself to keep the peace, the further you drift from your own center. A boundary is not an act of aggression. It is an act of clarity. It says, this is where I end and you begin. It is a recognition that not every demand deserves your attention, not every opinion deserves your energy, and not every relationship deserves unlimited access to your soul. When you establish a boundary, you are teaching others how to treat you, but more importantly, you are teaching yourself what you are no longer willing to tolerate. Every no becomes a sacred affirmation of your own worth. Many people confuse boundaries with rejection. They believe that saying no means being unkind, that setting limits means being distant or cold. But the truth is, boundaries make love cleaner, clearer, and safer. Without them, relationships become tangled in unspoken resentment and emotional debt. You begin to carry what isn't yours, to fix what you didn't break, to apologize for what you didn't do. You lose yourself trying to manage how others feel about you. Boundaries are the antidote to this slow erosion of self. They create space for authenticity, where connection is built on respect, not obligation. The absence of boundaries is often the echo of old wounds. Somewhere in your past, you may have learned that love must be earned through compliance, that saying no leads to abandonment, that silence keeps you safe. But these are the rules of survival, not the language of self-worth. Healing means rewriting those rules. It means realizing that you can love someone deeply and still say, this doesn't work for me. It means understanding that protecting your energy is not selfish, it's sacred. When you start setting boundaries, you will feel the tremor of guilt. That guilt is the ghost of your old identity, the one that confused self-sacrifice with virtue. But guilt is not a sign that you are doing something wrong. It is a sign that you are doing something new. The discomfort of disappointing others is often the price of honoring yourself. Over time, this discomfort transforms into strength. You learn that peace built on self-abandonment is not peace at all, it's suppression. Boundaries are not only about others, they are also about how you treat yourself. They are the discipline of not betraying your body for productivity, not silencing your truth for harmony, not tolerating your own self-neglect disguised as patience. You begin to notice where your own habits cross your inner lines, when you overthink, overcommit, or overgive, and you start to pull your energy back home. Each time you do, you reclaim another piece of yourself. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resist them. They will call you distant, selfish, or difficult, because your self-respect disrupts their convenience. But their reaction is not your responsibility. The moment you stop explaining your boundaries is the moment you start embodying them. You no longer defend your right to peace, you live it. A boundary is the voice of your worth made visible. It says, I will not abandon myself for your comfort. It says, my energy is not a public resource. It says, I am responsible for my peace. And the more fluently you speak this language, the quieter your world becomes, because you no longer seek acceptance through sacrifice. You start realizing that the people who truly love you will not be threatened by your boundaries. They will be grateful for them. Boundaries don't push love away. They invite love that honors who you are.
Silence is not weakness. It's contained power. In a world that equates speaking with action and noise, with influence, choosing to remain quiet can feel unnatural, even uncomfortable.
Yet there is a profound strength in restraint, a force that grows in the spaces where words are withheld. Silence is the pause between reaction and response. the moment where awareness eclipses impulse and where presence becomes more potent than argument. It is the conscious refusal to hand over your energy to chaos, to drama, or to provocation. The world often confuses silence with submission. People assume that those who do not argue, defend, or explain are somehow weak or indecisive. But this is a misunderstanding. True strength does not require proof. Power does not need applause. Silence is a disciplined containment of energy, the practice of holding yourself together when everything around you demands you fracture. It is in these quiet moments that self-respect solidifies, for you are no longer participating in the games that drain you. You are preserving your center, protecting your mind and spirit from unnecessary entanglement. Contained power is deliberate. It is not avoidance or fear. It is mastery. When someone seeks to provoke, belittle, or manipulate, silence becomes your shield. By refusing to engage on their terms, you remove the fuel that feeds their agenda. The quieter you become, the more clarity you gain, and the more your inner authority speaks without sound. In this way, silence is not empty. It is a presence that communicates without words. It signals to the world that you are not available for trivial battles, that your energy is not a resource to be exploited. Silence also has a reflective quality. In choosing not to react immediately, you create space to understand the situation fully, to assess your own emotional state, and to respond from integrity rather than instinct. Many conflicts escalate because words are spoken before clarity has arrived. By staying silent, you delay the impulse to react and instead allow wisdom to guide your actions. This is the essence of contained power, the ability to act decisively, but only after thought, self-control, and awareness. It is the power of presence over performance, of understanding over impulse. Moreover, silence is a mirror. It reveals who you are in relation to the chaos around you. When provocation comes, the reflex to respond is universal, but those who can remain calm and silent show the depth of their self-possession. It is in these moments that internal authority asserts itself. Silence communicates boundaries without aggression, dignity without arrogance, and confidence without neediness. It allows others to reveal themselves while you remain steady, unaffected, and present. Many fear silence because it exposes vulnerability, but paradoxically, it is in silence that strength is most evident. It is a refusal to let the noise of others dictate your inner state. It demonstrates that you are not driven by approval, fear, or the compulsion to dominate conversation. By holding your tongue, you preserve the potency of your words for moments that truly matter. Every word spoken unnecessarily is a fragment of energy lost. Every pause held is a reservoir of influence maintained. Silence also protects the imagination and creativity of the mind. In quietude, thoughts can expand, reflections can deepen, and insights can emerge. The world often values loudness and immediacy, but the silent observer has access to subtler layers of truth. Contained power thrives in these spaces, growing in quiet, invisible currents that cannot be measured by the clamor of opinion. It is the power that does not need to be proved, the strength that does not need to perform, and the influence that does not need to be loud. Choosing silence is a radical act of self-possession. It is the conscious decision to preserve your energy, to maintain clarity, and to honor your boundaries. It is a signal that you are in control of your presence and that your worth is not negotiable through reaction. It is the cultivation of inner authority that cannot be shaken by noise, insult, or manipulation. And the more you practice this form of quiet mastery, the more your power becomes not only felt, but recognized, not through words, but through the undeniable gravity of your composed presence. Projection is the favorite weapon of the wounded. It is the method by which unresolved pain reaches outward, seeking a target to carry the weight of what the person cannot face within themselves. When someone projects, they are not speaking truthfully about you, they are speaking about the parts of themselves they have not yet acknowledged, healed, or accepted. Projection is a mirror held up to your face, but the reflection is not yours, it is theirs. The angry accusations, the subtle manipulations, the unprovoked criticisms, they are all signals of inner turmoil, not judgments on your value or character. The wounded project because they cannot bear the discomfort of their own shadows. It is easier to see fault in another than to face the fear, guilt, shame, or inadequacy that lies within. Human beings are remarkably skilled at avoiding internal confrontation, and projection becomes a tool of self-preservation. Yet what they intend as a shield for themselves can feel like a weapon in your direction. You may find yourself doubting your own perception, questioning your worth, or internalizing the harsh words directed at you. But in reality, these attacks are echoes of their unhealed wounds. Understanding this distinction is the first step toward immunity against projection. Projection is often subtle. It can appear as criticism, jealousy, judgment, or even excessive praise that masks expectation. The projector may attempt to manipulate reality so that you conform to their narrative, convincing you that their perception is your truth. Yet the key insight is that you do not have to accept their story as your own. Their projection is an offering of their inner chaos. How you receive it determines whether it affects your inner state. Awareness of projection allows you to witness it without absorption. You can see their fear, anger, or envy for what it is, a reflection of their inner condition, not a verdict on your character. When faced with projection, the instinct may be to defend yourself, to prove that their perception is false, or to retaliate. But these reactions feed the dynamic, reinforcing their narrative and giving energy to their unresolved pain. The stronger and more grounded response is neutrality and containment. Recognizing that the attack originates from unhealed internal wounds allows you to maintain your own equilibrium. You do not have to justify, argue, or even engage. By holding your center, you deny projection its power and prevent it from shaping your emotional landscape. Projection can also serve as a teacher. When someone projects onto you, it offers a chance to observe the human tendency to avoid self-reflection, to witness the shadow of the mind in action.
It can reveal patterns in relationships, exposing dynamics where unresolved pain is continually externalized. By studying projection without absorbing it, you develop discernment, empathy, and resilience.
You begin to understand that when others lash out, it is not always about you, it is about the suffering they cannot yet integrate. Those who wield projection often do so unconsciously, believing their perception is reality. The challenge lies not in changing them, but in understanding the mechanisms at play. The more you recognize projection as the language of the wounded, the less likely you are to react emotionally, to take offense, or to allow their unhealed pain to infiltrate your sense of self. You develop the capacity to witness without being diminished, to observe without being consumed, and to remain sovereign over your own inner world. Projection becomes especially dangerous in intimate relationships or environments where boundaries are weak. Without awareness, you may begin to internalize a criticism, accept the blame for what is not yours, or alter your behavior to accommodate someone else's unresolved issues. Cultivating self-knowledge, strong boundaries, and emotional discernment protects you from this infiltration. You learn to see the difference between constructive feedback, which comes from clarity and respect, and projection, which comes from fear, pain, and avoidance. Ultimately, Projection is a call to recognize the limits of responsibility. You are never responsible for carrying the unhealed shadows of another, and your self-worth is not determined by the distortions reflected back at you. By distinguishing your truth from the projections aimed at you, you reclaim your power, preserve your peace, and create a space in which your energy cannot be weaponized against you. Detachment is the highest form of self-respect. It is not coldness, indifference, or avoidance, but a conscious choice to preserve one's inner sovereignty. Detachment arises when you recognize that your energy, peace, and sense of worth are not obligations to be surrendered for the comfort, approval, or control of others. It is the understanding that some battles are not yours to fight, that some relationships cannot be negotiated into alignment, and that your responsibility is first and foremost to yourself. Through detachment, you assert your value without confrontation, maintain your integrity without compromise, and create space where clarity and freedom can flourish. Many confuse detachment with selfishness, but the two are fundamentally different. Selfishness is taking without regard, grasping for personal gain at the expense of others. Detachment, by contrast, is giving up the need to control, influence, or be validated by that which is outside your power. It is the deliberate refusal to allow external chaos, opinion, or manipulation to dictate your inner state. When you detach, you do not withdraw from life or relationships. You withdraw your participation in patterns that diminish your sense of self. This act of discernment is the purest form of respect you can show yourself, because it places your well-being above reactive impulses. Detachment requires courage. It is easier to cling to connection, to fight for recognition, or to attempt to correct the misperceptions of others. Yet these attempts often come at the cost of your emotional equilibrium. By detaching, you choose neither to defend nor to protest, but to stand apart, observing without losing your center. It is a radical act of self-possession. You no longer allow the chaos of others to infiltrate your identity or dictate your worth. In detachment, you realize that validation, love, or approval of others is neither guaranteed nor necessary for your survival or fulfillment. Detachment also fosters clarity. When you are emotionally entangled in outcomes, relationships, or expectations, perception becomes clouded. Judgment blurs, emotions heighten, and decisions are often reactive rather than thoughtful. Detachment creates the space for conscious observation. You can see situations as they are without distortion from fear, desire, or attachment. This clarity allows you to respond with wisdom instead of reacting with anxiety, resentment, or defensiveness. The more you practice detachment, the more you understand the difference between influence and control, between what belongs to you and what belongs to another, and between responsibility and over-responsibility. Detachment is also an act of protection. It shields you from the subtle erosion of self-respect that occurs when you overextend your energy, tolerate disrespect, or remain invested in relationships that demand compromise of your values. By setting boundaries through emotional detachment, you conserve your strength for what truly matters, rather than scattering it on what diminishes you. It is a form of self-preservation that is proactive rather than reactive. It asserts, without aggression, that your time, energy, and emotional resources are sacred. Paradoxically, detachment does not diminish love, empathy, or connection. It enhances them. When you detach from the need to control, manipulate, or be validated, your relationships become more authentic. You engage with others from a place of fullness, not neediness, from choice, not obligation. Detachment allows you to witness behavior, understand patterns, and extend compassion without being consumed by them. It is the ability to care deeply while remaining whole, to be present without losing yourself, and to love without losing your center. Detachment also illuminates the impermanence of external conditions. People, circumstances, and opinions are transient, and attaching your self-worth to them invites suffering. By practicing detachment, you anchor yourself in a truth that does not shift with the tides of fortune or the moods of others. Your respect for yourself becomes an internal law rather than a reaction to external pressures. It teaches patience, resilience, and a profound sense of autonomy, allowing you to navigate life with grace, poise, and unwavering presence.